This is JMM Radio. JMM Radio. Get your day's dose of inspirational music. Tune in to JMM Radio every Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Only here on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Keep the Word of God strong in our lives. Keep the spirit of hope and the grace of healing alive every day. Keep the faith. Join us every morning for the celebration of the Holy Eucharist with the Jesuits from the Philippine province. Keep the faith. Daily Mass for Hope and Healing streams from Monday to Sunday at 8 o'clock in the morning on Radyo Katipunan's Facebook page, YouTube channel, Twitter feed, and other social media partners. The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour. Radyo Katipunan is now online. See our live feed on facebook.com/Radyo Katipunan. Check out our Instagram and our Twitter at Radyo Katipunan and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Radyo Katipunan FM for more exclusive content. Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Good morning, Ateneo. Start your day right with your morning wake-up call. Good morning, Ateneo. Energize your day with the lively, funny, and lovely tandem of Mir de los Santos and Ariel Dicción. Catch the latest news and stories around the campus. Good morning, Ateneo. Your daily dose of Radio Chikahan, tawanan, kantahan, and kwentuhan. Every morning, only here on the Voice of the Blue Eagle, Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Good morning, Ateneo. Mornings have never been this good.
Magbati po mga Katipuneros. This is Cardinal Chito Tagle. Join me every week on the Word Exposed on Air, here on the Voice of the Blue Eagle, Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM, the Ateneo Campus Radio.
The Voice of the Blue Eagle, Radyo Katipunan 87.9. Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle. You're listening to the voice of the Blue Eagle.
You know what it
Voice
is?
of the Blue
On the
Eagle.
Campus Radio.
Radyo Katipunan 87.9. Follow at Radyo Katipunan in our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Let us understand mental health and explore how we can take care of our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Welcome to your weekly slice of mental health tips and tidbits with Pat and B. Here on Mind Ed.
Sa'yo sumisilong kapag ang puso ko'y pagod.
Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle. Ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral at Binibining Risa Singson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Swerte o malas? Ako si Risa Singson Kaupeng, book author at editor. Magkapit pandasal muna tayo. May kwento tungkol sa isang matandang magsasaka na nawalan ng kabayo. Nang narinig ito ng mga kapitbahay niya, sabi nila, "Ay malas, nawala yung kabayo mo." Sagot ng matandang magsasaka, "Tingnan natin." Kinabukasan, bumalik yung kabayo niya na may kasamang 3 kabayong ligaw. "Ay swerte," sabi ng mga kapitbahay. Sagot ng magsasaka, "Tingnan natin." Kinabukasan, sinakyan ng anak ng magsasaka ang isang kabayong ligaw. Nahulog ang binata at nabalian ng buto. "Ay malas," sabi ng mga kapitbahay. Sagot ng magsasaka, "Tingnan natin." Sa sunod na araw, dumating ang mga militar para itipon ang mga kalalakihan upang lumaban sa gera. Dahil pilay ang binata, hindi siya sinama. "Ay swerte," sabi ng mga kapitbahay. Sagot ng magsasaka, "Tingnan natin." Diyan nagtapos ang kwento. Bitin ano? Pero ang silbi ng kwentong ito ay upang maisip natin na minsan yung kala nating swerte, may dulot na kahirapan pala at ang tingin nating malas ay may bit-bit na kabutihan. Hindi ba't ganyan din tayo sa Diyos? Yung kala nating matinding pagsubok ay sinadya pala ng Diyos upang tayo'y lumago at lalo pang mabasbasan. Kaibigan, walang malas o swerte sa Diyos. Sa kanyang kamay, lahat ay dulot na pagpapala kapag ang kanyang kalooban ang ating hangad. Tayo magdasal. Jesus, sumusuko ako sa kalooban ninyo. Amen.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atin sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng pera. Radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugo, todo sa kayod, punong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing hiding at tigil.
Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, ang social-political apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kuwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan.
Yan, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, no? And welcome to another episode of Kuwentuhang Bayan dito sa Radyo Katipunan. And of course, this is hosted by the Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, the Socio-Political Apostolate of the Society of Jesus in the Philippines. And of course, kasama ko naman ngayong umaga si Brother Martin. Magkaway-kaway naman tayo dyan, Char. Ganun pala, no?
Hello. Good morning, Carlo, and good morning sa ating mga Katipunera at Katipunero na palaging sumusubaybay sa ating programa every Friday. Ayan, so excited na tayo para sa ating kwentuhan this morning.
Correct. And of course, kasama din po natin si Miss Gracious. Ayan, Gracious, maganda ka naman, mag-hi ka naman.
Hello, magandang umaga sa lahat. Magandang umaga, Carlo and Brother Martin, sa lahat ng mga nakikinig sa atin, mga Katipunera at Katipunera.
Ayan, so medyo madami tayong papag-usapan, no? Actually, minsan naisip nga namin, no, sa programa namin tuwing Biyernes, pang-isip, ano kaya pag-chichismisan natin? Chichismisan din, di ba? Analysis. Ano yung ano natin doon?
Marisis.
Marisis. Mga
Marisis.
marisis, di ba?
Mga
Hindi lang puro
marites.
chismis. Pero may
Mar
analysis, 'di
analysis,
ba?
correct.
Kailangan medyo may lalim din, no? Pero una siguro, kamusta naman po kayo, Brother Martin and Gracious? Kamusta po ang inyong linggo? Baka gusto niyo po magkwento muna ng konti, no? Parang warm up lang.
Yan, oo, personal chismisan muna. Hindi. Okay naman, no? Maraming mga high points, no, during the week. Meron ding low points, syempre hindi naman mawawala. So yung mga high points, or syempre yung mga simple joys and mga simple accomplishments during the week, no? Yung mga low points naman, yung mga challenges, yung mga difficulties, no, in terms of studies. Ayan po, kasi ako po ay isang Jesuit scholastic na nag-aaral para maging pare, no, but still also very much involved with the apostolate, no. So medyo challenging naman as always, but I believe that the Lord is always there taking care of everything. Ayan.
Ayan, wow, inspirational po ang ating message kay Brother Martin this morning, no? Minsan napapaisip din po ako kung nag-aaral din po ako ng aking theology masters. Tapos mag-comprehensive exam po ako, no? And minsan naniniwala, sana the Lord will just make the way. No, just hindi pala nag-aaral din, nag-aaral naman po, no? Pero of course, no, marami ding worries. Pero salamat, Brother Martin. Ikaw naman, Gracious, kamusta ka naman?
Ako naman, natutuwa lang ako kasi nandito ako sa Bulacan. Tapos, so far for this week, hindi pa siya umuulan. So, masaya na ako ng lagay na yan kasi maganda yung aura, maganda yung pag lumabas ka, hindi ka, alam mo yun? Yun. So, parang ano lang, parang grateful lang din na ganito yung panahon natin na maganda at maayos. Ikaw naman,
Wow,
Carlo.
Oo, ikaw
Oh.
naman,
uh,
Carlo.
sun person ka pala, Miss Gracious, no?
Oo. Kasi
Para
medyo moody na affected ako ng mood kapag medyo gloomy, ganyan yung weather. Yan.
alam mo,
Wow.
May
yung mga
ganun.
kakilala nga ako ng mga trip talaga nila, 'di ba? Yung magre-reflect sila habang tinitingnan nila yung ulan sa labas, 'di ba? May mga ganun na mga tao, 'di ba? So
Yeah.
clearly
Oo.
hindi ako ganun. Mas trip ko din ang araw, no?
Sun
Parang ganun.
persons pala tayong lahat.
Oo.
Correct. We're all sun people, no? Well, ako naman siguro, kung kamusta ako, well, okay naman yung linggo, no? And kwento ko nga sa political team meeting, no, na masaya ako kasi medyo madami din tayo na nagagawa, no? I think right now, Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan is in the process din, no, na medyo siniset natin mga directions natin pagkatapos ng strategic planning natin at marami tayong mga programa, no, na binubuo. And I guess sa mga nakikinig din po, no, invitation po to sa inyo kung gusto niyo po mag-collaborate with SLB at sumama sa aming mga activities, mag-volunteer, pwede din po kayo mag-message. And of course, yung ito, kung gusto niyo if ever mapadpad po kayo dito sa radio namin, meron pong volunteer opportunities din, no? But anyway, so marami din tayong programa and I think yun yung ano pa siguro, no, one of the sense, no, na meaningful work na ginagawa natin and I think maraming kailangan gawin yung mga sinasabi ni Brother Martin pero totoo din marami ding consolation, no, kasi alam natin na kasama natin, no, ang Panginoon sa lahat ng ginagawa natin sa socio-political work, no. At minsan iniisip ko nga mabigat yung trabaho, di ba? Parang minsan nga before radio, di ba, sa kapihan session natin, babasahin natin ang daming balita and half the time siguro negative yung balita, no? Pero I think sa today, no, medyo sa papag-usapan din natin ngayong araw, meron naman din mga sinasabi nating lights, no? Moments of consolation for us, no? So, well, I guess pwede na siguro tayo magpatuloy, no? And ano ba ang first topic natin ngayong araw, no, Miss Gracious, no?
Yan. Ang first topic natin ay energy crisis. Yan.
Energy crisis. Okay. Sige, para lang siguro sa ating mga listeners, no? Nagkwentuhan kami, nagkaroon kami ng kapihan session. Medyo napag-usapan po doon, no, na we are to expect an energy crisis again. Parang nagiging cycle na to. Parang hindi na nga siya unique, no? Parang every time we enter into the first half of every year, no? Especially during the summer months, no? Talagang nagkakaroon tayo ng shortage, no? In terms of energy supply, no? And most people would say it's really the issue of higher demand, no? Grabe naman kasi talaga yung tag-init dito sa Pilipinas, 'di ba? You know what we call sa tag-init natin, as in talagang ano, 'di ba? Mapipilitan ka talaga mag-aircon kahit alam mo tataas yung bill mo, no? Pero 'yun, so medyo may ganun, no? And it's something that worries us, no? Ano ba yung mga napag-usapan din natin, no? The other day, Brother Martin, it's gracious you wanna.
Yes, yes, yes. So yung napag-usapan natin, no, syempre open ko lang din sa akin. So yun, ano, gaya na nabanggit ni Carlo, we're facing a crisis or a potential problem come the next year, no, pagdating ng mga summer months. No, kaya ang sinasabi naman talaga ng ating Department of Energy is what we really need is energy efficiency and conservation, no? So manggagaling yan sa ating mga individual and communal efforts, of course, no? But there are other ways also na nabanggit, no, na para makita natin yung solusyon, no, dito sa energy crisis na ito. Medyo long term siya, I guess, pero tinitignan, no, the Philippines is being urged daw to lift the foreign equity limit in renewable energy sector. So ano po ba yung ibig sabihin nito? Ang ibig sabihin nito, no, ililift yung limit, no, kasi mayroong limit lamang po ng amount of foreign equity or investments na maaari, no, sa ating for example in the renewable energy sector. So if I'm not mistaken, it follows the 60-40 division. Pero ang sinabi naman, no, pwedeng i-lift iyon, no, following the legal opinion provided by the Department of Justice, no. So we're trying to look into that dahil kung increase natin yung foreign equity investments natin, maaring magkaroon ng positive impact in terms of the production of energy, no. So parang in theory, the more investments we have in a particular sector, mas marami rin yung yield or yung product, no, or yung output, no. So yun yung isa sa mga tinitignan natin na paraan para masolusyonan itong ating energy crisis, and that is to lift the foreign ownership in the renewable energy sector. Kailangan lang, mayroon lang mga technical things, no, na kailangan gawin dito. Sinabi na kailangang i-revise yung implementing rules and regulations, no, of the Republic Act 9513 or the Renewable Energy Act of 2008 so that it will conform, no, or agree with the legal opinion of the Department of Justice. So that's one. I don't know, Ms. Gracious, meron pa bang iba, other things that we can highlight about the energy crisis?
Nakamute po kayo, Ms. Gracious. Yeah.
I think yun nga, parang I think yung kailangan natin na increase yung use ng renewable sources of energy natin.
Correct.
Kasi yun yung makaka-ease ng impact ng high fuel prices. So ongoing pa rin yung sa Ukraine and Russia na war, so affected pa rin talaga tayo. At actually global crisis siya, energy crisis, di ba?
Yes. And actually kahit din sa kung nakikita niyo, no, problema naman din dun sa Europe ngayon is in a sense, yung winter, no? Winter is coming. Well, winter is coming. Talaga napaano ako dun, Game of Thrones.
Game of
Winter is
Thrones,
coming.
yeah.
Di ba? And literally, kailangan talaga nilang mas mataas na gastos, no? When it comes to generating heaters, no? During the winter months. And I think that becomes a problem. Actually, nalulungkot lang. Ako dito siguro sa Pilipinas, no? Madalas, yung nagiging problema talaga natin kasi hindi constant, no? Yung energy source natin. It becomes very difficult difficult to invest, no? In a sense, there are areas, di ba, na may rotational brownouts, di ba? And if you're a business person, di ba, parang you wouldn't want to set up in an area or a factory, di ba, na mawawalan ka ng kuryente bigla, di ba? Parang talagang ano yan eh. That's really one of the biggest problems, no? At yun nga, sabi nga ng Energy Secretary natin, no, si Secretary Lotilla, no, na it's really one of the things that tinatry nilang ayusin by investing more, no, in renewable energy. And well, ako interesting kasi there was a time na I think July, end of July, nakapunta ako sa Negros Island, no? So very interesting sa Negros Island because in Negros Island, they seem to be investing in a lot of cleaner sources of energy, no? So una, nakapunta kami sa geothermal, no? First time ko na ever nakapunta sa isang geothermal plant. As in, sobrang cool. And inisip ko nga na parang it's one of those constant sources of energy na kaya niya mag-produce ng energy throughout the day. Actually, yun din yung kailangan pag-isipan pala sa energy, no? Kasi not all energy forms can be used, parang can produce and generate consistently, no? And of course, battery technology natin, hindi pa ganun ka-efficient, no? So, in that sense, no, like solar can only power things insofar as there is sun, di ba? Hydropower, I think consistent naman siya. Geothermal, pwede din siya 24 hours, no? Kaya medyo may nakausap ako na parang energy experts who works in the field. Tapos sabi nga niya na, ang tawag doon, one of the reasons why coal continues to hold sway, di ba? Or yung mga fossil fuel based is because it can generate electricity throughout the day, no, supposedly, no. And pero maybe that's the reason why they want to pull in, di ba, na more investors because I think may technologies talaga overseas, no? And it's not able to penetrate the Philippine market in terms of renewable energy because of some of these limitations. Kaya medyo maganda siyang pag-isipan, no? So solar, tide, I think there's tidal power na nga and we have so much coastline, di ba? So baka that's something na pwede nating tingnan din down the line.
Right. I agree with yung sinabi ni Carlo. Actually, sabi rin ni Department of Energy Secretary natin, si Lutilla, said, no, talaga namang nakikinig sila sa mga investors, no, because, ang sabi niya, we don't want renewable energy projects to be built. And then, as what happened in Negros, nabanggit na nga ni Carlo, they cannot be used at all. So parang in the end, it will be wasted. Because there are no, ito rin yung isa pang mahalaga, no? Kailangan transmission lines. Kailangan din ng transmission lines to transmit the power out of Negros Island where it will be produced, no? Pero useless naman din kung hindi siya matatransmit out of Negros to areas where it is needed, no? So isa yun din yung hinahanap ng mga investors, whether there are adequate transmission lines that can transmit the power out of the production plant. Yun. All right.
You know what? Last point na lang siguro, no, kung i-connect natin konti sa Laudato Si, no. I think recently also, if I remember correctly, mukhang there are greater moves, no, from the church also trying to move towards cleaner sources of energy. So again, there are two tensions, no, that we're facing. At one level, you need consistent energy sources, no? And from what I understand, renewable energy is still, in a sense, the margins, no? Hindi pa siya parang malaki in terms of share, no? In terms of energy production. And the goal is to increase it, no? So the consistency of electricity versus the source of energy, diba, which needs to be cleaner, no? And I think there really moves, no? For example, pressuring the church, and I think the church released a letter some months back, no? To divest, no? Diba? The whole divesting, no? To divest from things that are inconsistent with the Laudato Si principles, no? And maganda pag-isipan lang yon, no? Because I think that's the challenge for us moving forward, diba? Na where do we put our investments in? Saan natin nilalagay ang ating pera para makabuo ng mas maayos na energy source mix, no, etc. And hopefully, no, na church institutions will take this seriously, diba? According to Laudato Si principles. So divesting from things that are destructive to the environment, divesting from coal-powered fire plants that are clearly going to aggravate our climate change situation, diba? So I think that's really a critical reflection, no? Pero wala, you have to hold it in balance talaga, di ba? Na parang
Ah,
we need the energy supply now, so we go for fossil fuel. But also, the more we do this, the more dangerous it becomes over time for future generations, di ba?
right, right, right. Oo.
Lang talaga din, no? Kailangan i-balance lahat.
Mm.
Correct. So mahirap,
Appre-
actually medyo mahirap talaga yung trabaho ng
yeah. On
energy
another note, parang
sector.
na-appreciate ko lang din, no, parang the role that the church is playing, when it comes to these issues. So the church is actually not silent, not silent about these issues. It offers no spaces for critical reflection for the flock, by
Yeah.
offering parang insights from Laudato Si, So parang hopefully this will encourage discussion and participation from the people. Ang inaasahan ko lang din sa simbahan, parang sana hindi lang puro statements, but also really help out in the
Action.
educational campaign, of the
Mhm.
people. Oo. Sige, so yun lang
Now,
muna.
it's an issue of will, Brother
Oo,
Martin, di ba?
totoo.
Parang the
Yes.
church has, in a sense, totoo naman, the church has investments, It puts its money in things so that it can continue its ministries, di ba? Na parang, so I put my stocks here, I
That's
invest in this so
right.
that yung mga returns niya, pwede kong gamitin, di ba? To feed, clothe the hungry, di ba? Di ba? And all of that, the ministry to the poor. Pero totoo nga, beyond just statements. Actually, iniisip ko nga di ba? Parang magkakaroon kayo ng audit, di ba? To what extent has the church divested, from such industries, di ba? Those are such good questions to ask, di ba?
Oo.
Ano parang
Interesting to
just
know
to
yan.
measure,
Yeah. Yeah.
di ba?
Saka I think,
Since the
no,
statement, go, Gracious.
I think, no, parang tayo rin, parang kailangan maging involved and engaged din tayo bilang mga Catholics sa church. Yung mga nangyayari ngayon sa social issues, yung gano'n.
Correct, no? And I think I honestly believe, na parang it's a pressure na kailangan gawin, even in our own church institutions, no? I'm quite sure in the synodality consultations, that were done. I'm sure this was an issue raised by young people. Parang I cannot imagine that young people would not raise the concern of climate change. I mean, like, I think it's the biggest battle that we will ever fight, as a generation, to sustain, di ba, living in this world, di ba? And I don't know, at this point, di ba, the church needs to walk the talk to a certain extent, di ba? To what extent have we also supported renewable energy development in our country, mga ganun mga bagay. Grabe, kailangan natin ng special episode before on Laudato Si. Well, Laudato Si talaga
Yes.
specifically, but anyway, galing pala yung sa energy talk, and I think, well, moving to the next topic, actually medyo ibang topic talaga siya completely, but the SIM card registration law, so it has already been signed, by our president, and from what I understand, medyo matagal to hindi napasa, or there was a time na veto din siya by then President Duterte, on the side of civil society. A lot of things has been raised, on data privacy concerns, because in essence, the SIM card registration law requires people na, for example, prepaid. I'm a prepaid user, right? I need to register my number, right? I need to register my number, my address, and everything, and I'll give it to the Globe, So for example, ako Globe, I go to Globe and I basically give them all my details, etc., etc. No? And when it is also, of course, it was a response to, I think, a number of things. The first was troll activities, di ba? And mga spam, mga scam, yung magte-text sa'yo bigla, di ba? Na i-click mo to and then suddenly your bank details have been taken away from you. Mga ganun na bagay, di ba? And so the SIM card registration law was passed to try and address this thing. Pero of course, there are those concerns relating to data privacy. What are your thoughts, Gracious and Brother Martin Carson? Go, Gracious.
Oo, kasi di ba parang hindi pa nga naayos yung implementation ng rollout ng national ID system. So, sana maging maayos muna yun para at least mas madali na lang din yung implementation nitong bagong law. Para, alam mo yun, maayos lang din.
Yeah. Brother Martin?
Yes. Actually, I'm all for parang the elimination or the eradication of all the online scams and online text messages. Dahil nakakatanggap rin ako niyan, no? Okay sa akin kasi parang in-ignore ko lang naman siya. But for some other people, they bite into it, no? Tapos kaya talagang nangyayari yung mga scamming, no? Yung concern lang, no? Parang I also find the concern on privacy really, kanina binabasa ko yung news, no? Parang medyo na-scared ako. Medyo natakot ako kasi parang I'm giving out much of my information to the government, to the public, ganyan. And I've heard about instances, I've also read about instances in other countries, no, na parang medyo hindi naging favorable yung implementation nila ng SIM card registration. Such as countries in Indonesia, for example. Sabi dito sa news, no, in Indonesia, data breaches are so common that just last August this year, a hacker posted the national identity numbers, phone numbers, and telco providers of at least 1.3 billion SIM registrations, no? So if the government really pushes for SIM card registration, kailangan din nilang magkaroon ng mechanisms on how to protect the data that they will gather. No, kasi ano siya, subject siya to hacking, prone siya to hacking, no, if walang protective mechanisms, no. So siguro yun lang din yung i-expect ko from the government if they well, of course it's already signed into law, no, pero what would console me or parang assure me, no, is that my data should be protected also, no. Parang I should be able to demand that from the government as well.
Actually, that's... Ay, sige, go, Gracious.
I think yun din, parang kailangan, parang yung implementation ng Data Privacy Act natin para ma-ensure nga din yun, that assured tayo na maayos na hindi magiging, ayun nga, prone sa hacking and spamming, yung itong bill na to, itong law na to.
Actually, what becomes scarier for me, no, in general, tama yung sinasabi niyo eh. There was a time na nagkaroon ng breach sa Comelec. Do you remember that? As in, hack yung Comelec and basically the data was released and biometrics pa yun, di ba? Which is...
Right.
And alam mo, I actually checked it and part of my data was released there, no.
Talaga?
Well, hindi pa
Oh my God.
Oo.
Talaga
Hindi siya yung
ba?
Well, in fairness, hindi siya yung pinaka-updated kasi hindi pa ako nag-update ng data talaga noon, no? So there were things like the address, hindi siya
Oh my
in-update,
God.
gano'n. Hindi siya in public. As in, talaga sabi ko parang, so ba yan? As in, literally all my data, di ba? My private data was just released on the, no? And I think that continues to be, di ba, the biggest conflict, no, when it comes to bigger and the collection of data, no? Especially ngayon, pwede talaga siyang gamitin for marketing. There's really a lot of things. I mean, you can make money, di ba? Just based on data, di ba? Someone hacks it and then you can sell it, di ba? Hindi ko alam kung napanood nyo ba yung nanonood ba kayo ng Netflix si Extraordinary Attorney Who. So, anyway, just wanted to say, no, in the last episode of that Netflix, yung last case na hinandle ni Attorney Wu, no, it was literally about data breaches, no, and a hacker, etc. No, so and iniisip ko nga, no, imagine kung mangyari and nangyayari siya sa Pilipinas, di ba, and our data gets released there. Part of me thinks, can we hold people accountable, di ba, when it comes to this, no, etc. And I think the second thing na medyo scary on the side, no, and I was reading it also, is surveillance, no. Okay, so in a sense, surveillance is this medyo tension yan, no? To a certain extent, importante na if you want to monitor certain criminal activity, supposedly, no, you need to do surveillance. But also in a country where to a certain extent, medyo meron tayong mga issues when it comes to the protection of basic civil rights, di ba? We still have the case of red tagging. Iniisip ko nga, to what extent will our telco providers be able to protect our data? No, meaning for example, if government says gusto ko makuha yung call logs, 'di ba? Or yung mga detalye ng tao na to, itong number na to, 'di ba? And sino tong tao na to, ano yung mga call logs niya, ano yung mga text niya, mga ganun, etc. Right? And it makes you think, di ba, parang does that mean that the government can pry into everything that we do, no? And it's kind of scary, di ba? Kasi in a sense, di ba, you are being watched, di ba? Para Big Brother is watching, no? And then,
Right.
di ba? Like, and how do you do that when, in a sense, mahina pa to a certain extent yung mga institution natin to protect our own civic political rights, no? I don't know. I guess yun yung ano ko. What are your thoughts about this whole tension when it comes to the SIM card?
Yeah, agree, Carlo. Sabi nga nung ano, no, sino ba yung nagsabi nun? Let me just check, no. Si Renato Reyes, the Secretary General for Bayan, expressed concern. Sabi niya, we understand the recent concerns over online scams, but sacrificing privacy is a more problematic response. So parang the issue really is on privacy. That's the scary part, especially when it comes to surveillance. Ang iniisip ko lang, no, yes, we have this problem of the online scams and the online texts, no. The online scams and the yes, mga text scams, no? Pero hindi ko alam kung yung SIM card Registration Act or the law is parang the right response kasi parang para siyang ano bang tawag doon, parang blanket solution siya in a way
Yeah.
na parang everyone will be subjected to it pero maraming nasa sacrifice in the process, no? So I'm not sure if there is a more targeted or more specific solution to the problem rather than a one-size-fits-all blanket solution to everything, which sacrifices other things. No? Hindi ko rin alam yung sagot.
Saka to think, no, parang ito yung unang law na pirmahan ni President Marcos. So,
Or the second, I think, after the cancellation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are, I guess, some concerns, no, that we do need to look at. Pero I guess parang public service announcement. Public service announcement, diba? So from the moment, no, na of course the law has been passed, but the next stage of a law kasi is the crafting of the internal rules and regulations. So paano talaga siya i-implement, no?
Correct.
And nakalagay nga dito, no. So under the law, no, well, everyone needs to now register. Ako, for example, ako lahat prepaid SIM ako. So for sure, kailangan ko talaga pumunta sa telco ko and do all my registration, etc., no? But it's interesting, nakalagay nga dito, no, sa information provided to providers may also be disclosed in case of a court order. So kung may court order against a person, kailangan di-disclose yung data, no? If a subpoena is issued or upon the request of a law enforcement agency. So for
Right.
sure, the government actually has a say. It is unclear if subscriber consent will be required in those cases. So hindi pa klaro kung malalaman ng subscriber kung binigay talaga ng telco, mga ganun, if consent is needed. So ito yung hindi pa super clear, and I think this is where the internal rules and regulation actually plays a critical role. Diba? Na sino yung uupo doon, how stringent are the measures, how do you make sure protected talaga yung data privacy ng mga tao. Pero yeah, so tama ka, Brother Martin, I don't know how you weigh it.
Yeah.
In a sense, gets mo kailangan siyang solusyonan, pero hindi mo din gets kung ano pa ba yung mga ibang pwedeng gawin.
Correct. Technical question, Carlo. Sino ba yung nagsusulat ng IRR, Implementing Rules and Regulations ng mga laws?
From what I understand, normally there is a technical working group that gets set up, no? So usually sa batas naman kasi, meron talagang leads yan, no? And there's also, in a sense, agencies, no, who are tasked to implement the law, no? So usually a law has someone in charge of it, no? Parang to make sure it happens, no? So in this case, it might be NTC, no? Baka NPC, the National Privacy Commission, and then there's also yung National sa telecommunications, 'di ba?
ICT.
And then, 'di ba? And DICT might get involved. But there's also actually space for civil society participation, no? So I've actually attended some previous discussions before na yung government nagtawag sila ng meeting to do a technical working group for the IRR of a certain law. And nag-invite talaga sila, no? So alam nila yung institution na to may expertise in terms of this topic, no? So they kind of brought them together. Oy, can you help us craft the internal rules, the implementing rules and regulation, no?
Right.
Ito na yun eh, the devil is in the details, di ba? The law is general eh. And it's in the IRR where you kind of talk about the details. And yun, so I guess, I hope, I actually don't know kung sino yung uupo doon. Maybe I really hope, no, that there are people na uupo doon na medyo gets nila yung concern about
Correct.
privacy
Oo.
concerns, di ba? And
Oo.
sana ilagay talaga sa IRR na, for example, you need consent, mga ganun na bagay, di ba? To just make sure people know what's happening with their data. No? Yun, so medyo complicated siya. And I can imagine the hassle. I can
Oo.
imagine the lines, the hundreds of people who will go to Globe and Smart and all the
Right.
telco
Over the next
agencies,
6
di ba?
months, correct.
Over the next 6 months just to register, no? So sa mga nakikinig po sa atin na prepaid po, kailangan po actually bantayan natin yan. Something to watch out for. No?
Saka di ba tama, no? Parang sa isang subscriber, but you can register multiple accounts, multiple.
Pwede ba yun? Hindi ko alam
Oo,
actually.
yun.
Saan mo
Sa,
na ano
sa,
yun? Ano yun?
sabi sa news din.
Oh.
Oh, so multiple SIM cards, meaning multiple registration. Well, of course,
Oo,
di ba?
isang
Parang you
tao
have
lang
to...
can register multiple SIM cards.
So yung goal na talaga nila is actually just to get, basta to register everyone, yun na lang siguro yan, no? But alam mo, this seems to be a practice in some other countries, no? So kung pumunta ka actually sa Singapore, hindi ka pwede bumili ng SIM card kung wala kang passport, no? So kung ikaw foreigner
Talaga.
ka, yeah. So you actually have to go, for example, pupunta ka sa 7-Eleven or something, bibili ka ng whatever, like a convenience store, right? And then you kind of buy a SIM card. You actually have to give them your passport, right? And they would actually get your passport number. They said ito yung SIM card, etc., etc. So you kind of get it. There are certain practices happening around it. But I'm assuming kasi that other countries are more sensitive, better at
They can handle things
protecting.
better than us.
Actually, yun talagang palaging concern naman talaga natin dito sa Pilipinas, di ba? The implementation, di ba? The laws are beautiful, but the implementation, yun talaga yung big
Correct.
concern natin, di ba? Alright,
Enforcement.
so correct, sa enforcement. So, yun lang po sa mga nakikinig po sa atin, no? Bantayan niyo lang po yan. The SIM card registration law is in effect. It will need an implementing rules and regulation. Pero bantayan niyo lang po yung balita and announcements, no? In the next 6 months, you might be required, no, to register your SIM card. And I can just imagine kung hindi niyo gawin yan, that's a very frustrating thing, yung mawala yung number mo. I think that's the worst, no? It will be stressful to you, it will be stressful to your loved ones and everyone, no? Especially kung na-memorize mo na yung number mo. Actually, memorize ko na number ko. Kung magkaroon ako ng bagong number, it will probably take me like a few more months to remember again the new number. So, medyo hassle yung mga ganun bagay. But, yun, so I think that's something that we have to monitor and look at, no? And yun, maybe we can go to the last topic for today sa ating Marisis Sessions. Marisis Sessions. I don't know kung sino gusto
Yes.
mag-introduce. Sige, ikaw na. Go, Brother Martin.
Ako na ba, Miss Gracious or ikaw? Baka
Carry lang.
tulungan mo na lang ako, Miss Gracious, kasi ikaw naman nag-report ito sa ating kapihan, no? But I can also share, no, the last news item, no, or topic that we will discuss for today is about Simbayanihan. So ano ba tong Simbayanihan na ito, no? So si Caritas PH, no, will promote what we call the Simbayanihan movement in parishes nationwide, no? So nationwide meaning all the 80 or I think 85 dioceses in the entire country. No, so ang mangunguna dito ay ang CBCP NASA or Caritas Philippines, no. Ano ba yung point, no? Ano ba yung goal ng Simbayanihan? So sabi, the movement aims to promote good governance among government officials and workers, and it will be led by representatives and directors of the social action centers or the SAC of the 85 archdioceses and dioceses around the country. So, particularly, ang gagawin nitong mga social action centers na ito, no, they will partner with the church to conduct educational and information dissemination campaigns on good governance, particularly in the barangay level. Ayan. So syempre, our church leaders stress the importance of this, no? Sabi nga ni Bishop Bagaporo, no? I think siya yung National Director ng Caritas Philippines. Ang sabi niya, it might be difficult, but we have to do it, no? It is the moral duty of the church, our moral obligation to correct the wrong and to highlight what is good and right and just. Okay? So far, yun yung overview nitong Simbayanihan movement na ito. So it's really about good governance and accountability, no? At yung gagawin nga ay mga educational and information dissemination campaigns in the barangay level, no? Will you add anything to that? Any details, Ms. Gracious?
Oh, tama ka dyan, Brother Martin. Nabanggit din ni Bishop Pablo David ng Caloocan na itong movement na to ay magsisilbi bilang training ground for future leaders embodying principles of the Catholic Church. So, maganda siya talaga na movement na sana masuportahan din natin. At yun, ito naman, sabi naman din ni Archbishop Villegas, merong over 100 million Catholics and sana makinig itong tayong mga Katoliko sa church. Kasi karamihan nga, karamihan na ng mga Katoliko hindi na nakakapagsimba, so hindi na naririnig yung boses ng mga Katoliko. Yun.
Correct. No? Actually, yung hinahanap ko lang, no, when I was reading the news article, yung hinahanap ko lang is more on the practical side. When they say they will conduct educational and informational programs, no, who will be the target audience? Number one, will it be the youth? Will it be parish workers, etc., etc.? What age group? Ganyan, no? So parang wala pa yatang details at this point, no? At saka, ano pa yung isa kong hinahanap? Hinahanap ko kung meron bang specific topics na ba yan na sila na set nila for this movement, no? Kasi parang when you say good governance and accountability, parang medyo broad pa siya, no? So ano kaya yung mga topics na ito? Siguro yun yung mahalagang bantayan, no? When sabi kasi nila, sabi nung ating church leaders, it will take, I think, about a year in order to roll this movement throughout the country, throughout the 85 archdioceses. You might have to wait for the details as we go along.
So, but next year pa pala to, no?
Correct. Pero I'm curious siguro sa ano nyo, ano yung naging context? Bakit suddenly the church decided to push for this? Was it also, did it come from a very specific form of reflection? Or I don't know, parang like...
I think yung nangyari kasi na yung election natin, itong nakalipas na election, so I think maraming namulat. At kasi nga, di ba, parang binak din ng church yung si Vice President Lenny na unfortunately hindi naman siya nanalo, pero marami talaga na movements na katulad nito na na-open, parang na-awaken ba yung diwa nila na they have to do something, we have to do something about this. I think lang, that's my opinion.
Tsaka maybe apart from that, no, I think more than a response to the recent national and local elections, yung ano din talaga, the vow of the church, no, in a statement that it made recently, to really actively and conscientiously engage with the government. So I think this is, gumagalaw na talaga, gumagalaw na talaga yung simbahan into a more social and civic, no, orientation, no. Hindi siya pangingiilang sa politika. Sabi nga ng ating church leaders, hindi siya pangingialam sa politika, pero talagang ginagawa lang din yung nararapat, what is right and just, no? So yun, no? I think.
Look at the perspective. I go. Sige, go, Gracious.
And I think, no, that parang that we need the church more nowadays sa society natin sa nangyayari sa lipunan, no? Kailangan talaga na aktibo at maging sobrang yung voice talaga natin must be heard.
Yeah, I guess it becomes like a real tension, no? Tama yung mga concerns din ni Brother Martin. Iniisip ko nga, no? Is it, I guess I'm curious din on the details, on the specifics. Kasi honestly, I mean, tayo sa Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, no? I think that's something that we would appreciate. And when to a certain extent, that has been our message, no, for the longest time when we go to our communities, our parishes, na necessary talaga na kailangan, no, maging involved. Pero alam mo, and I really hope, no, kung meron man nakikinig dito sa ating program na taga, ano, no, who might be involved in the crafting of Simbayanihan, no, I think what's necessary, more than ano, is the skills, eh. I think people understand the value of good governance. In a sense, no? Parang alam naman roughly my gut feeling mga tao, di ba? Kung may corrupt, di ba? Problema yon. That's problematic, no? For our communities, no? But it's really the skill set, di ba? Na parang ano yung kailangan matutunan ng isang mamamayan para alam niya, no? Kung paano, how to hold government accountable. I think yun yung isang, it's a deep reflection. And even for us, it's a continuing struggle, di ba? It's one thing to tell people na, oo, ito yung mga problema nangyayari sa ating lipunan, right? And ito yung mga problema nangyayari sa ating komunidad at may kailangan tayong gawin, no, sa mga issue na nakikita natin. It's another thing to empower people at the level of may gagawin ako kasi alam ko na kaya ko pala, no? Yun yung mga levels na it's not even just the skills, it's even just the feeling na kaya palang gawin, no? And it's really a great step forward for the church, and I think the great challenge is bridging that, di ba? Yung the idea na oo, importante to at meron kang magagawa. I think that's totally like a big, no, jump, no? And I'm just hopeful at least we're trying to push for the narrative for this.
Correct yan. I'm also all for it, no? Parang yung hope ko para dito sa Simbayanihan movement at hindi lang siya sana maging transfer of knowledge, no? But really transfer or parang development of skills, no? To really empower people, no? Yep.
Application, no? Kasi usually puro values lang na i-impart. Appreciate naman natin yon, pero I think ang kailangan talaga ngayon yung empowerment nga, tama kayo na, at yung yung application talaga.
Yeah, and actually ang interesting kasi, well, I don't know if this is also parang looking now at the bigger context of the church, no? So we're in a synodal process. We are consulting people. People seem to be looking for institutions they can trust, no? And to a certain extent, interesting kasi po kang may contradicting data nakukuha natin tungkol sa simbahan, no? So at one level, mataas yung trust levels ng sa church. It's actually higher than media. It's even higher than government. But my sense is that it's because of humanitarian efforts also, right? Una naman talaga simbahan, di ba? Usually, pinag-usapan natin dati, di ba, when it comes to labor concerns, actually, simbahan naman talaga nagsa-step up, no? So, for example, kung nagkakaroon ng mga strike, etc., the church, in a sense, kung nasasabihan sila, they're willing to give support for mga unions, no, who are going on a strike, for example, no? In cases also of disasters, disasters, talagang malaking ginawa ng simbahan doon. SLV was very involved sa Region 8, no, in terms of rehabilitation. At alam namin, it was the church and faith-based groups that did so much of the rehabilitation efforts also, constructing houses, rebuilding communities, di ba? Civil society played a huge role. The church played a huge role there, no? But somehow, in politics, when it comes to governance and political affairs, parang nagbabago yung trust ng mga tao. No, does that make sense? No? Para so mataas yung trust when it comes to social work, right? Clear, humanitarian, social work, no?
Correct.
Pero pagdating sa politika, parang nagkakaroon tayo ng weird like yan yung opinion nyo, ito opinion ko, right? Parang ganon. And I think there seems to be a real tension, no? I remember some priests, some religious I was talking to, na frustrate talaga sila, no, with the election results, na they were talking about this, na pinapaglaban nila isang tao, right? Etc. Pero hindi naman yon yung inano ng communities kung saan sila embedded in, no? And it kind of begs a reflection, di ba, on our side also. To what extent should the church, one, influence, right, political position? But the second time is to what extent does the church actually is capable of influencing that, no? I don't know what your thoughts are on it. Kasi parang, di ba, coming out of the elections, kasi I'm sure this was also, parang sabi nga ni Miss Gracious, this was a response, di ba, to what happened also. That's why we need to strengthen governance, participation, efforts, etc. But, di ba, parang may ganun na gap eh. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, Miss Gracious. Ako may thoughts ako pero very raw kasi eh. Oo, para kasi I have a feeling inside of me, that since I'm a religious brother, I'm a Jesuit. Parang in a way, I feel like I represent the church in some way. Parang being a person who is studying and training to be part of the hierarchy, no. So parang hindi ko
Yes.
alam kung attractive pa ba tong vocation ko in the end, no? Kung
Wow,
hindi naman
Oh,
nag-crisis pala.
kung 'di ba, parang the concern parang makikinig pa ba yung mga tao sa akin kapag naordinahan akong pare? So yung mga gano'n, yun yung mga naisip kong mga bagay. Pero on a more serious note, I agree with Carla that this really begs a reflection and discernment on our part, no? Kasi I don't know, with the recent turn of events, parang na-feel ko talaga na parang hindi na pinapakinggan yung simbahan in a lot of things, mostly political. Pero kapag
Yes.
dating ng sakuna, pagdating ng crisis, no, parang takbo agad sa simbahan. So parang
Oo.
how does the church parang how does the church, or how should I also, no, being part of the church, no, also discern how to move to proceed from that, no. What can I do, and what can I do to contribute, no, so that the church will have a positive, no, impact in terms of shaping the religious and the political thinking of the people. So personal reflection question ko rin sa sarili ko.
parang I'm just wondering na parang anong nangyari kasi yun nga parang since EDSA yung 1986 ganyan, pero through the years parang bakit naging ganun yung ganito na tayo ngayon na parang yun nga parang na-degrade or something like that, na parang sayang yung influence talaga kasi napakarami talagang napaka-influential ng Catholic Church sa totoo lang. Yun lang, bakit kaya naging ganun. So through the years and itong nangyayari sa lipunan, yung ganun.
Yeah, and I guess to what extent should the church, and I'm not going to be, ano no, parang in a sense say that everything that the church influence was always for the good, no? And I wouldn't, di ba, in a sense, just do a blanket, for sure, there have been contentions with the church on many different positions. Yung statements niya, to a certain extent, sometimes the images of God being promoted with the kind of theology being promoted, no? So in a sense, the church is not homogeneous at that level. At alam natin, may hinanakit din, no, ang mga tao when it comes to what the church says about certain issues, no? And you can already imagine on gender issues, right? I think that's one of the biggest, I don't know, women participation, right, in the church. I think those are real pains, no? And I think lumalabas na yun sa synod, right? Even lay participation is also becoming like a critical conversation, no, in the church. So in a sense, no, totoo, may tayong good influence, but we also need to acknowledge, diba, na parang meron din tayong ilan. Pero tama, no, I think it really begs the question, no, to what extent or in what way actually should we be influencing society for the good, no? Alam naman natin na, for example, meron tayong Catholic social teachings. Malalim yon. And even our Protestant Christian brothers and sisters would say na the Catholic Church has a very deep, right, treasure called the Catholic social teaching. And yet, di ba, it remains to be seen how it is actually, kung paano talaga siya ini-implement, paano siya sinasabuhay, paano siya ginagawang practical, no? Kinikwento ko nga din, no, for example, kila Brother Martin, kila Jesus, no, na the kingdom of God itself, right, the concept, it's already been warped. Di ba? Parang I feel like people don't fully understand the whole mission, right? Na tinatawag tayo, di ba, to be reconciling, right? To promote justice. And necessarily, requires us to do something about politics eh. Pero parang ang layo pa rin nun ng bridge, no, ng pananampalataya
Correct.
at ng politika eh. There seems to be a huge, 'di ba?
Divide.
Divide eh in terms of those two things eh. Diba?
Right, right. Kaya mahalaga yung ginagawa natin din, Carlo, no? Parang dahil nabanggit mo ang Catholic social teaching, no, is to really help people understand, no, how it can be lived out in
Yeah.
daily experience, daily concrete experiences, no? Parang how do we bring also the kingdom of God down to earth, no, such that people will not think that it is the afterlife or some other thing, no, but really it's in the here and now, in the present, and it's something that we can live out in our everyday life, no. Yes, no? So, para po sa ating mga nakikinig dyan, no, kung interesado po kayo to undergo a formation series on Catholic social teaching, we also provide that service. Nag-promote na.
Pero real tensions eh na I love to reach out with Simbayanihan, no? And we'll probably reach out to them also to
Yes,
see how we can
correct.
work and collaborate kasi I think this is really a space eh, diba? You're creating a program and a space kung saan not only do we transmit knowledge, we also transmit skills, no? But
Correct.
not only that, I feel like baka Simbayanihan may play a very critical role in trying to create a space for dialogue, eh, di ba? Na I can imagine, yung mga papasok na mga tao doon, magkaka-tension yan eh. Sasabihin nila, to what extent should we be involved in governance, really? Di ba? To what extent should we involve ourselves with politics and how does this connect with my faith? I think yun yung mga, ako personally, it would be such a beautiful place, no, to have this kind of ang ganda ng usapan, no, na sa Simbayanihan space, no, and I think I'm excited actually to see what would happen in the next few months, no, for this. All right. So, well,
Yes.
papunta na tayo sa dulo ng ating programa pero baka meron pa yung mga key takeaway sa ating Marisis session. Baka pwede ka muna mag-start, Suspicious.
Ako, actually, yun lang. Sana, I'm hoping pa rin na magkaroon ng strict implementation ng mga laws. Sana dumating yung panahon na sana hindi naman siya near future naman siya, hindi naman yung sobrang layo. Na para at least yung mga pinapasang batas may pangil at may ngipin. Para at least siniseryoso siya ng taong bayan. Yun.
Right, right. Ako naman, maybe not so much a takeaway but a hope, no? A hope, no, na sana lalo pang lumago, tama ba yung term ko, lumago, or lalo pang makita o maging visible ang simbahan sa ating socio-political affairs, no? Whether it's something that concerns the environment, kagaya na napag-usapan natin kanina, no? Or also something that is related to good governance, no? Dahil I really have a feeling na marami talagang ginagawa ang simbahan, no? At sana nga gaya na nga nung sinabi ni Carlo, no? Na sana matulungan din ng simbahan ang mga mamamayan, no? Na makilahok, no? Makilahok.
And well, ako sa dulo wala naman ako masyadong madadagdag except siguro, no. Right now nagtuturo ako ng theology at na-realize ko, no, na parang malalim yung kailangan matutunan ulit ng mga tao tungkol sa mga basic concepts even about our Christian faith, no. Kingdom of God pa lang, who Jesus was, what Jesus was doing, yung mga ganitong bagay, no. And I think ito yung mga na iniisip ko na there's a lot of work to be done at the formative level even, no. I think our executive director, for example, has framed it as there is a deep need for some form of socio-political spirituality, no, like a kind of spirituality that really moves you to respond, diba? Na ito yung mga nangyaring issues, ano yung tugon natin, diba? Yun eh, right? And it's not even at the level of faith, diba? It compels us to do something about what we see, and I think that's the great challenge, no? sa ating programa, sa ating mga ginagawa dito, no, sa simbahan. So with that, I think officially tapos na po ang aming programa. Maraming salamat po sa lahat na nakinig sa aming programa dito sa Kuwentuhang Bayan. Of course, we invite you to listen to us again next Friday. Promote it to your friends. Actually, may special session po tayo next week, no? Kung saan papag-usapan natin ang ekonomiya. Ayan, so medyo nag-viral po ang ating si Sandro Marcos, no? Sa the peso is not too weak because the peso is weak. 'Di ba? Yung mga ganun na eme root, no? So papag-usapan talaga natin, ano ba 'to, 'di ba? Ano ba 'tong inflation? Ano ba 'tong peso weakening, eme? And papag-usapan natin yun sa susunod na programa namin next Friday, no? So hopefully you can share this to your friends at sumama kayo sa aming usapan. Right? So yon, maraming salamat and thank you again for
Maraming
watching another
salamat.
episode of
Maraming
Kuwentuhang
salamat
Bayan.
sa lahat.
Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, ang socio-political apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kuwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan.